Oskar Metsavaht, you're the owner and visionary behind Osklen, one of the most iconic brands in Brazil. You've been 20 years a global ambassador for UNESCO. You're the catalyst behind what is happening in the industry sustainably. Mm-hmm. So I'm bound to ask you at the beginning, how far do you think we've come within the fashion industry, and how far do we still have to go?
First of all, we have to change not only the fashion consumerism, the way we consume. This is first. It's come from an individual changing, not only institutionals and not only companies, enterprise. Fashion, I talked this for a long time. I think fashion should be something that, yes, we need great basic pieces that, as you have scale for them, they must be sustainable in many aspects on the supply chain. And second, the luxury ones, not the snob luxury, it's the luxury ones that comes from a sophisticated way of producing, mm-hmm. to be also sustainable. And we will keep using basic things and luxury because they keep longer, they have a meaning, they have a work of craft. I think this is where fashion comes from.
Give people a really quick idea of the fabrics that you use, how you source the materials, how much water you use, how you do it differently perhaps to other designers.
Well, the difference. One thing is interesting. My first project, the first project in Brazil, it was in 1998. I did that first. We did with the research institution in Brazil. We created a project of organic cotton in Brazil.
Okay.
So since there, I became a kind of a benchmark in the country. And then projects around from the Amazon or from other biomas or for artisanal work in some northeast of Brazil, they came to me and bring to say, hey, help us to develop it. And they didn't have aesthetics, they didn't have a way of managing how to develop a collection or a piece to be desired by society. In that time, we have many projects, not only in Brazil, around the world, on sustainability, that the process is sustainable, but the product doesn't have desire for the society. And then I could understand, wow, fashion is so important. Fashion is so important because what we do, we create things to be desirable. Yeah. We seduce people to buy it or to wear it. And, so if we can do that, why can't we do but on a sustainable chain? And of course, in Brazil and many places in the world, we didn't have a supply chain dedicated to sustainability because it was a very difficult shift. It took almost 30 years to get here, to be the chance talking to you, to be sharing with the others, and some other companies has changed. We developed around 72 products, materials. Some products, some materials became successful, like the fish skin from the Amazon that I use on my shoes and bags. For me, it's an example of a very wonderful luxury. That means when I bring luxury, the word luxury, I bring from the word lux.
So you work very closely with people in the Amazon?
Yes, but since in 1994.
Okay, and you talked about organic cotton, but also you recycle.
And then from the last 12 years, we could understand what was the recycling of clothing, the upcycling. And recycling cotton, I love, for me, is the most sustainable one because to plant, to seed, to create a culture of cotton, you exploit lands, you use a lot of water, you lose a lot of energy during the whole process. With the recycling one, you just spend kind of 10 to 15% of the energy and use of water. So, and it gets
this
great
is the T-shirt, right? I mean, it looks like a great T-shirt.
It's a great T-shirt. It's not about it's the simplicity of a T-shirt, but what we have behind is the story behind. It's about innovation. It's about bringing sustainability. social impact, because I mix with some other fibers also.
When you advise companies, and we'll come to how you advise them, you have an acronym which we'll all recognize, ASAP, which I translate as soon as possible. How do you translate it?
It was my experience for my first project, that organic cotton, that I could see how difficult it is to be something 100%. And we society, we want to say, yeah, you have to be 100%. Certifications, 100%. If people would say it's too expensive. If I would say for a commercial side instead, a creative person and with the ideology of sustainability, with the vision that would be the future. It's ideology and vision on that. That's what we drove in the 90s. If you don't do those first steps, 1%, 2%, 5%, you will never get to 100. And it's so great when you watch that I'm being very conceptual about 1%, just to provoke you who's watching us. If just 1%, you would say, no, this doesn't go. But see, this 1% is 100% of a huge project that you had transforming a life of a cooperative in the Amazon, or bringing a new sustainable, innovative from research companies, research institutions and companies, etc., developing a project that's small, that don't have scale. We have to understand we are living a transition from 200 years of industrial revolution.
Yeah.
And we are not going to be just because the society wants to be, next we have to be 100%. So ASAP.
So
for me,
what you're saying is it's baby steps. It's not as soon as possible. It's as sustainable as possible now.
Thank you for
1%,
that. Exactly.
Let's get to 2%, 2% to 4%, and so on, which is really interesting, because I think if you talk to anybody out here about this green transition, it seems overwhelming to all of us, not just in fashion, in transforming our homes. So there's a message that you're sending as this goodwill ambassador that, look, you don't have to do it all at once.
But do it right, and do resilience and consistency long years. What we see around the world in the last 20 years, etc., some companies in any kind of segment do one project. They help this, they do one project, it's not profitable. So we have many interesting projects that are just points, not consistent. That's why we are considered as a sustainable project is interesting from my institute and Osklen. Is because we have consistency since then. Like Stella McCartney, and
someone
like
to carry
Yvon Chouinard from Patagonia.
Someone to carry it and carry it to fruition. The issue is, and you've already talked about this, it has to be profitable, because that's why you're in the business. How do you share ideas? Because there's a competitive advantage to do what you want. If consumers want sustainable fashion and you're doing it well, then you have a competitive advantage. How do you share it? And should you share it?
Sustainability is not it's my effort at the company, with my teams. We are a fashion brand. Fashion is talking about the zeitgeist, is being a comfortable piece, quality piece, a fashion avant-garde. This is the work. Sustainability is something that is in behind. It's not in the front. I'm being in the front with sustainability because I'm invited to talk about that.
Right.
I think the companies must be.
But be honest, did you have to create Instituto E, which is your foundation? Did you have to create that as the vehicle to share ideas?
To share my ideas, and having Osklen as a benchmark during those last 20 years.
So the brand was successful. People are bound to listen because you're successful.
And not by only people, designers from other companies, other brands, as we are a benchmark. From being Brazil, from being projects in Amazon, from being in Rio de Janeiro, from being people like my aesthetics, my proposal as a fashion, and sustainability that's behind. Osklen is a benchmark. And people, all of us, we search for new materials.
But you share because you're passionate about it.
Yes.
Do others share? I mean, do the big fashion houses who are on the strip here in Cannes, would they share ideas on how to do this more sustainably and to cut costs doing it?
I was invited for the first time in 2004 to Milano's Fashion Summit to talk about my work. I was just 5, 6 years, I don't know, developing it. Some companies has changed. Some groups, like Caring Group and LVMH, came to us. They learned a lot about us. I hope they can do and transform like we are doing. Of course, big companies. Some fast fashion looked for us also to develop projects. But I'm not involved on that. I think what I most like is that Osklen is not just a design company. It's a concept and it's a laboratory for the fashion industry in Brazil and internationally. You know, we are just ahead on these innovations. Not ahead that other brands, other companies are super ahead, but I think with this consistency that we bring and this difference, it's not about only the environmental or climate change. We think a lot of social impact that we do for the poor communities in around Brazil.
But I like that. I mean, the laboratory is such an evocative word that you use, because I think we get the impression of what you're trying to do and create within the factory. But sustainability is not just about the fabric. It's not just about the style. It's about the whole ecosystem of the industry. It's about delivery. You're delivering bulk around the country. How do you do that? How do you encourage people to look at the whole gamut of things that they're doing?
About the logistic transport, that we have the same problems as everybody. So, of course, we do, since the packaging, the logistic. Of course, it's interesting people understand that sustainability is about just thinking in economy. To be economic, turn off your light, turn off the water, and we learn as young. This is the education of respecting nature, respecting the others, and respecting the value of things. So when you have this culture of sustainability, that I mean it's education, inside, this is what we bring from the Institute. We come to the companies and we try to people understand that it's not develop a sustainable project. We have to change, we have to bring the culture of the sustainable development concepts into the mind, into the culture of the company. Not in a big sense, but the ones who transform, engineers, designers, etc., etc. Because when we do a project or a collection, what we do, we search for the fabrics, the materials, colors, logistic, campaign, expression, cost. You search for the new design, textures, etc. This is coming to mind. And engineering
but that gives you an impression of how you have to change the culture within the organization, because everybody who works in those departments has to buy into the passion that you bring to it.
I think for sure, but I think the world is, we have people that want that. And I think the creatives, that's why I'm here. I was invited to be here at...
they buy it as well. Well, that's a really interesting thing.
The creatives can help a lot.
Well, of course they can. And I think one of the really lovely things about what's happening here this afternoon is that you're going to invite the public in to see the ideas. So often with trade shows, the industry is cut off. You know, they're not allowed into places like this. You're going to invite them in for 2 hours to come and see the work. The culture is driven from the organization. But there's been so much written about fast fashion. We're in a cost of living crisis. It has to come from the people out there who want to buy the T-shirt and understand how it's made.
I think they must buy my work for the aesthetics, comfort, quality. Sustainability, it's not an issue for marketing.
Okay.
It's an issue for transforming it.
You don't think people buy the idea of sustainability?
No, I don't. People, you know what I think since Glasgow COP, and companies on the last 30 years has changed much more than us as individuals. Of course, not every company, of course, but companies has changed a lot. We have electric car, we have organic food, we have sustainable clothing, we have some, you know, but we as individuals, we didn't change. People still consume looking for what represents a status, or what is cheaper, or what bring some like vanguard. We buy in that way. We prefer cheaper things and more representative, significant for us.
The BBC interviewed Arnold Schwarzenegger last week, and he said, stop moaning about Donald Trump and the messaging on climate change, because it's happening and you need to drive the change. Do you think it matters that the most powerful man in the world says, we don't need to focus about this transition, we don't need to focus on it? Or do you think that organically, if you pardon the pun, it is happening anyway and you won't stop it?
I think we are living exactly by the end of the 90s and 2000s. By the end of the 90s, after the Rio de Janeiro 92 conference, Clinton was going to sign the Kyoto Protocol. And look what happened, all changing. And we became with the rights on it, Iraq, oil, and then everything go down. We took a long way to get into a new wave that we are living. That's why we are talking now about sustainability. And again came something strong to say no for the second time, after other occasions also, but strong like that by Trump. I'm very optimistic, because I really think, and I love to believe in this generation we are living, our generation, for the last, take 50, 100 years, 50 years. We as a line of civilization, the planet almost died many times, with meteor, with the glacier era, with the disease, with the oil wars, with atomic time. We always had this. Now we could understand since the 50s that we were killing the planet, the nature. We are killing the planet, human society. But our generation got it already. We understand what we need to change. I think the mindset of the society, the global society, is changing. I think people like us, we are being the luminaries of a neo-Renaissance moment, where technology.
We're almost out of time, but I want to ask you one final thought. It's a very water-intensive industry, fashion. And yes, there is a change that has already begun, and people buy into it. People understand that the climate is warming, that we're killing the planet, and so they want to do something about it. But I wonder actually whether for the industry itself, this change is going to be born out of necessity, because water won't be as freely available.
There is the pessimist way and the optimist way. I think we always are gonna. It's very hard when you see things like that. For example, I was at the Ocean Summit, participating to roundtables, and one was about education. And Brazil was the first country in the world to bring the ocean literacy into the scholarly curriculum. It was, everybody loved that, etc. On last Friday, Brazil didn't sign the pact for the plastic with the other countries. I'm just playing something to understand that not only Trump, but sometimes we are not developing. We know what we have. We have great corporations that don't want to change. But it's not what I would say. I think we are not going to keep a society to stop them. But what we have to do is we have to help and promote the companies, the industries that are coming with sustainable projects. We have to stop buying, using it, and promote those ones. Maybe it's expensive because we are living a transition moment of the civilization, the economic industrial way. It's innovation. Innovation is expensive. Innovation doesn't have scale. Innovation needs society or institutions or governments to sustain it, to develop. Then this economy is going to come. And who invests in those companies will invest in this new economy. We can see some projects like that, like the electric cars, Tesla, etc., etc. So if we that's why I say it's about us societies, it's about us institutions, and it's about the companies that are keep doing like I'm doing. Of course, it's not profitable, but it's visionary. I want my brand to live for 100 years. Because I really believe the pillars I'm building, not being talking about me doing, etc., but the pillars I'm doing as other brands, as other companies, are strong for this century. It's a romantic way of seeing, but I think it moves.
It certainly moves people because there's a lot coming in, and I know you're going to go and speak to them, so I'm going to have to give you away. But thank you very much. It's been a real honor.
No, it was a real honor.
Thank you, Oskar, and I wish you the very best with your project.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Cool.